Today is Monday, September 8th, 2025. This is Sarah Franklin interviewing Jim Legakis for the Theodore Corbett Institute for Running History Research's Roadrunners Club New York Association Oral History Project. Jim, thank you for taking some time to speak with me today. To start,
Okay.
could you introduce yourself and provide some biographical information, including your birth date, birthplace, and where you grew up?
Yeah, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, July 14th, 1948, which happens to be Bastille Day. And I was very active athletically from like 5 years old. Baseball. Then I got involved with wrestling in high school. And in 11th grade, I started running track. And I loved it. I loved going out in the woods. I loved running on the roads. I loved running to the beach in the summer. And I got better and better and went to St. John's on a scholarship, track scholarship. And it didn't work out great, but it was a good team. I liked the team. And so anyway, I had the 2 mile record as a freshman, the freshman 2 mile record, and I had the sophomore 2 mile record. And I was on the distance medley team, which I think set a St. John's record. I ran a 3/4 leg, 3:02, 3:03 with Donnie Rowe on the mile. He was a little under 4:10. And I forget who was, I think Phil Tobin might have been the half mile at 150, 149. And then I don't remember who ran the quarter. It was around 47 seconds. So we did pretty well. I think it was the school record. I'm pretty sure it was. And we ran in the Penn relays, Iona relays, Quantico relays. And Quantico is one of my favorites. You know, it's a big amphitheater, so to speak. You sit up on a grassy hill. It's like you're sitting in a gigantic grass dish. And I just really like it. It's a dirt track. And I ran my fastest 3/4 split there on a dirt track, even though Penn Relays has a synthetic track. So I really loved running. And then eventually I gave up on the competitive end for a while, and and then I came back out to California, and I ran in San Diego. I ran in L.A. I ran in this on the Santa Monica Track Club for a short time, and with Joe Douglas, and the training there with the Eagloid training really was tough. I couldn't handle it. I got injured a lot. I think their methods are excellent. Some athletes just can't hold up. A
And
couple
can you
months
just give a
later,
little background about Mihaly Eagloy and just what, his backstory and what his training methods were?
sure. Okay. We'd go out to the track, jog about a mile, mile and a half, and then always report to the coach. And the same thing was with the same thing was with Laszlo Tabori out in San Fernando Valley. So we would jog and then report, so to speak, back to the coach, and he would just say something like 8:150s tempo. In other words, just roll through 8:150s, 65-yard jog, and he would always be watching you on the track when you're on the track, really studying you. You can actually look at an athlete before a race and tell what kind of shape that person was in, maybe by the angularity of the face or whatever it might be. I liked Joe, and I thought Lazo was a fantastic person. Same methods though. So 8:150s, and then we would jog a quarter, do some light stretching, report back to the coach, and then maybe run 2 3:30s with a 1:10 jog between each, and then report back to the coach. And you might do something like a 3/4 to get you tired, something like 5 minutes pace, 5 minute pace. Nothing fast, but just something on your legs. I think Joe used to say that a lot. Put it on your legs, get it on your legs. Uh, and the workouts lasted sometimes 2 hours. And I didn't really feel, I mean, I felt tired when I finished the workout, but I didn't feel it was too much. As the days went on, though, it got to be pretty tough. Joe trained every day except Sunday. And Laszlo was every other day. I think it was Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We would run intervals, and the other days he said it's on your own in his thick Hungarian accent.
Were you training for a specific race or a specific distance, or was this just something that you were interested in doing just
Well,
to push your own
actually, I
fitness?
wanted to run the mile and 3 mile, but the Igloi method basically trains the athlete for like a year before they really race seriously. So not only was I getting frustrated, I wanted maybe a time trial or something, but that's their method, and I'm not knocking them. I think they do. They're terrific. They're terrific coaches, and I regret I couldn't hang in there longer. Um, I ran a few 3 miles, 14, 15, nothing really great, but I didn't really click as far as really peaking or anything because that was the year I was supposed to, get all that bolt training in. And Joe Douglas will tell you once you get that year in, uh, you could run 4 minutes. He mentioned that to a few of the athletes. Mark Rafferty, Thornton Bigley trained with us. They were low 4 minute milers. And at the end of a long interval workout, we would run like 15 to 20 football fields at our own leisure, though. Just stride out 110, walk across the width, go back down the other side. And yeah, I remember doing that at the end when the lights were on. Santa Monica Community College. They had big lights and a couple of workouts we did straightforward. I remember 16 quarters. I don't remember exactly what we ran them in, but I came out there late. And one thing about those two guys, Joe Douglas and Laszlo, no excuses. Today's the workout. You came out late. They were very nice guys, but they were regimented, which is great. And one time I went out, I had to do I had to do 16 quarters by myself, and I did pretty well. And this one girl who was training there all the time too, she and I became friends, and she said Joe thought you were looking good and all that. And there was a coffee shop right across the street. I don't know if it's still there, right across the street from Santa Monica City College. A lot of the runners, well, some of the runners, I know I would go over there across the street just to calm down and relax and have a cup of coffee and believe it or not, a donut. so, uh,
And
so
you
I
ended up
enjoyed
getting
it.
hurt doing those intervals did not really suit your running style. Like you ended up getting hurt pretty badly for most of that time with Igoli, right?
Yeah, I pulled a hamstring slightly, and I babied it for a while. I wore sweatpants, and I had little quirks, little things that happened. Another thing that came up, I had a cold a lot, and I just had like a low grade infection,
Hmm.
and I think that's from the seriousness of the training. But like I said, I wish I could have stayed in there longer. My style at St. John's was much less intensive as far as intervals. Uh, Steve Bartol knew what he was doing. He was a tough guy, like I said, tough personality. But we would go out and run 12 quarters, and that would be it, which is good workout, but not like Joe's or Laszlo's. Those were more intense. And one thing I left out too with Laszlo's workouts, sometimes he would say, "I want you to run a half hard under 210," something like that, toward the end of a workout or at the end of a workout. And uh, what was his name? Babaraki, right? He was always in. He was a tiger. That guy. I try to stay up with him. he was he was tough. He was very tough. Um, but he was like our leader in our group. And every once in a while, we did have that interval where Laszlo really wanted a fast one. So anyway, that's basically how it worked out: 150s, 330s, maybe a three quarter in the middle of a workout, maybe 20 football fields at the end. I don't remember it exactly, but I had a diary. I kept a diary, and I went home and tried to memorize all those intervals, but I jotted down 150s, 330s. Um, yeah, my style over the years was really getting into long distance, just long runs. I love 20-mile runs, 50-mile runs. Um, I have the Ted Corbett book. He ran around Manhattan all the time. I just have a lot of respect for all the runners. I mean, we're all out there doing the same thing. one foot in front of the other. I don't care how fast you are. I've met some fast people, and I told you I met Steve Prefontaine. I met Peter Snell. Met a lot by chance. Eamon Coughlin. Um, they're all doing the same thing. They're out there and they're training hard. Um, I like training. I like the feeling after training. I could train by myself pretty well. I got into before I won that 30-kilometer race. I was up at my grandfather's farm running over 100 miles a week by myself with my brother. He was a good runner. He didn't have his heart into it like I did, but he would go out with me quite a bit. And I did fartlek. I don't know if you know what fartlek is. That Swedish speed play they call it. I would go out and run, say, 10 miles, and in each mile I would run 1 minute hard. And at the end of that workout, I was gone. I was really out of it. And then I would also go to a hill, about a 180 hill, and at my grandfather's farm, maybe at a 25, 30-degree angle, and I would just run up at high knees. And, I could train myself. I really could train myself. Um,
So that was
but I,
when you were talking about the 30K AAU National Championship. That was in 72 when you won that race in Central Park.
yeah.
So would you consider that to be like the heyday of your running and training, like the early 70s?
Well, actually, I would say on an emotional level, the number one race is that 5,000 meters I won in Greece because my dad died when I landed in Greece of a heart attack in New York.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And then I flew back to New York for the funeral, and it was traumatic. He drove me, but my mom drove me to the airport the day before to meet the team, JFK Airport. And the next morning, he died. And I went back to Greece, and Coach Klensos, his name is Klensos, and I forget the other coach's name. They were really happy I came back, And my father's dream was to have me run the races in Greece, not necessarily win a race, but I did win the 5,000. 1,500, I was a little lackluster as far as speed training. I missed a lot of time back in New York at the funeral. I would say I ran 4:01 for 1,500 meters, which was pretty much off what I thought I could have done. I thought I could have gone 10 seconds faster. But I felt the last 300 yards of each race was a duplicate. I really tied up, and I went through the three-quarter in a time that would have been pretty comfortable. But, my dad died, and that was about it. But I did pretty well in let's see, the 1,500, I was sixth or seventh in each one. There were about 15 guys, 15 athletes. So I did okay. I would say that 5,000 wasn't the best race, obviously, but it was the most inspirational. I didn't expect to come back and win a race.
Hmm.
So, and I was in the Greek newspaper. They mentioned it in the Greek newspaper that in Athens that my dad died. I flew back from New York. Um,
What year was that? And can you just explain how you got involved in that race in particular?
yeah, I was. The team. We were already entered in the 1,500. I was already entered in the 1,500 against Italy and Greece, and then another race against Greece only, and then the 5,000 was against Greece, I believe. So we were already entered. Every athlete was already entered. Some of the athletes were world class, like Chris Papanikolaou, who had the world record in the pole vault. He competed there that night, and I talked to him briefly. I think he was the first person to go over 18 feet in the pole vault. So there were some really good athletes there, but I wouldn't say it was anywhere near like a top race, top meet. It was a good meet, but that's about it. It was an all comers meet. And I have that Greek jacket. I traded, believe it or not, I had a jacket from LA, Harbor College, I was wearing on the infield after the races. And one of the Greek athletes came up to me and offered me his Greek Olympic jacket for the Harbor, I'm embarrassed to say it, for the Harbor sweatshirt. It said Harbor College on it. So I gave it to him, and my brother was there, and he flew back from New York. Um, yeah, it was exciting. I would say that was the most emotional race in my life. Um, And then the 30 kilometers, probably one of my best. But believe it or not, who the heck, I don't remember who mentioned this. I ran an 8 mile race. You could look it up in Bristol, Connecticut, the week before. I think Gary Corbett mentioned this to me. That race was it was a really top race. 42:08 for 8 miles, very hilly. It was the Bristol, Connecticut Flower Festival race. I think John Vitale won it. I don't remember exactly who was in the race. It's quite a while ago. But apparently, I was right up there with some really good guys. But I don't remember. I could never get, Sarah. I could never get a copy of that list of entrants or the placings in that race. I even try to locate the Bristol, Connecticut. What was it? Municipal community. There was some kind of developmental that put on. They put the race on. I could never get my hands on the race results. So anyway, I just assume I did pretty well. And there was another race I ran. I didn't even realize that I beat Tom Laris, who was probably one of the best, if not the best, Greek American long distance runner at the time. I beat him in the 6 mile Met AAU race by 13 seconds. And I'm pretty sure Gary Corbett told me about that a while back. I didn't even know it. It wasn't a great race, but I beat Tom Laris.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you beat a guy you never expect to beat. He was on the Olympic team, Mexico City, 10,000. So I don't know if he was in his best shape, but that's the story.
Can you talk a bit about your running in New York in the, late 60s, early 70s before you went to San Diego? Like you had noted that you remember when you signed up for the Roadrunners Club New York Association for $1.50 in 1966,
Yeah,
and
right,
just
right.
any of the runs that you did with them, either in McCombs Dam Park or just anywhere in the city leading up to, the 1971 New York City Marathon, which you had also run. So just kind of those years of running in New York for you.
Yeah, well, let's see. Van Cortlandt Park, there were a lot of track meets in Van Cortlandt Stadium. And interestingly enough, in the summer, I like the variety. In the summer, there was a 4 mile cross country race right in the middle of the summer. And I think I won my age group. I don't remember, but I did okay. I met Albie Thomas, the Australian world record holder there. And I ran with him in his house at Garden City. He was an engineer and he was here from Australia for a year. And at the award ceremony, I recognized his Australian accent. I walked over to him. He's a little guy, about 5'6", and he invited me to train with him at his house on and off. So I went over there. I trained with him. Delightful personality, very very friendly guy. Um, and also at who was it? Um, yeah, he won a lot of the track races. Tony Colon, Van Cortlandt Park, right? He ran some really, really impressive races. That track was not fast. That was a really tough, uh, unsettled, so to speak, dirt track. It was a very, very slow track. But what I remember a lot about those races is that I really enjoyed going to these races. I loved it. I loved going to the races. I love bumping into guys that I probably would never beat in my life. Byron Dice, he showed up. Tony Colon, actually John Carlos, who was on the Olympic team, 200 meters. He was there all the time with his jukebox. He was funny. Yeah, I really love going to these meets. My dad loved going. So you see the tie. My dad loved going there. He always walked over to Byron Dice. He liked Byron Dice, and then John Carlos. He used to joke around with him. Um, let's see where else. Central Park, the 8 milers, 12 milers. A lot of those races I used for training, to be honest with you. And you never knew who was going to show up. Obviously, Tom Fleming, he always showed up. You never beat him either. Tom Fleming was there all the time. Fred Lebo, not Fred Lebo. What's his name? His last name spelled something like Oh, he won a couple 10 milers. I forget his name. He's a little guy too. Fred. His first name is Fred. I don't remember his last name. I just don't remember his last name. But so Alley Pond Park, I used to train through there with St. John's. Um, Van Cortlandt Park track. Uh, I never really got excited about ultras. I thought they were way out there. They were tough. I mean, Ted Corbett, obviously, 200 marathon. I think he's run 200 marathons. Um, but one thing too, I liked the camaraderie with the runners. I didn't feel, even if someone was right there, super competitive. Um, I won't answer it right now, but I don't know. I used to just go to a lot of the races. I went up to Connecticut, Westport, Connecticut. Um, Let me see. Hold on a second. Sarah, do you mind?
Hmm.
One second. There's nobody on the phone. Yeah. So what I remember one thing I remembered about a lot of those races. They were fun. They were part of training. If I did really well, I was usually excited about it. Um, yeah, and I also remember after the races, there was so much camaraderie. It was just like a big social event combined with athleticism. I was in heaven. I was really in heaven. Let's see. I don't know what else to add.
Can you talk about
Uh,
like Joe Kleinerman, Kurt Steiner, the guys who were there all the time, whether they were racing or administering the races, just some of the familiar faces that you would see at those events?
oh yeah, yeah. I have a whole list. I have a list of the guys. Let's see. Yeah, Fred Lebo, Kurt Steiner, John Garlick, Ed Winrow, um, Paul Fetcher, obviously a friend of mine. I trained at his house a lot. Uh, Gary Murphy. I remember when he ran into the side of a bus and he was selling. Yeah, he was running. He ran a marathon. He ran into the side of a bus. He hit his head on that big mirror.
Oh,
I really like Gary. He had super shoes. He sold shoes out of his van, super shoes, and he lived on Long Island out by oh God, about 20 miles up from where I was. He was one of the pioneers. He sold shoes out of his van, and Franklin Square. He was in Franklin Square a lot. Paul Fetcher lived in Franklin Square. Uh, yeah, Kurt Stein. I used to talk with him a lot. Ed Bowes, another favorite, super guy. Ed Bowes. He had that wobbly style. He went back and forth, shoulder to shoulder. It wasn't a perfect running style, but he had a lot of guts. Of course, Ted Corbett. See him around. Um,
do you have any
I don't know.
specific memories about Ted? Did you know him well or at all?
No, I didn't know him well, but a lot of these people you meet you bump into before the race warming up, and he was always really considerate. I was a young guy at the time, and he would run by. He probably was a good 25, maybe 20 years older, and I had a lot of respect for him. And when he jogged by, he looked at my shoes. He asked me how my training was. Very serious, nice guy. But I can't say I know him that well. But I talked to him on and off at races. Um, John Garlick, talked to him a little bit. Um, Tom Fleming, I didn't talk to too much. He was always into either warming up or doing something. uh,
And then running really, really fast.
yeah, yeah, Tom Fleming. Um, I like Kurt Steiner. He would always come up to you with a lot to say. He was a lovable, great guy. I really liked him. Um, and yeah, he would talk about everything. Central Park, he just talked about everything. He would talk about the world track events, what happened in Finland the night before. He would come up with all kinds of stuff. And I'm a bit of a talker, you can tell, so I got along with him really well. Jim Rafferty, he was the New York athletic coach. I was on that team for a short time, and I was also on the Long Island Athletic Club. Uh, Before that, Paul Fetcher was a member. Hector Ortiz, I don't know if you remember him. He ran a 4:10 mile in high school. He won the state championships here in New York. couple years after I graduated. Let's see. Oh, he went to Brentwood High School. And this is interesting. When I was living in LA, I bumped into Hector in New York, and he asked me if he could visit me in San Diego. And he came out for a short time. I had a little apartment, and we went down to Tijuana. He spoke fluent Spanish, you know. So, I mean, that's what I mean. Sometimes you just hook up with people, you don't even realize you've got a friend. So, um, for
And so
me,
you ran in 71, you ran the New York City Marathon. Did you recognize a lot of the people in that race? That was the second time they held that race in Central Park. Do you remember that race at all, or who was there, or how you finished, or anything about that?
yeah, I ran. I didn't run in the New York City Marathon exactly. It was the Cherry
Cherry
Tree.
Tree. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It was the Cherry Tree. Norm Higgins won the race. Norm Higgins won the race in 2:15. I ran 2:44. It was my first marathon. And my mother said, never again, you know, never again. Um, I, I looked at it as a challenge. Gary Murphy was in the race. Um, Vince Chiappetta. Who else was in that race? A lot of old timers. Oh, McDonough. Jim McDonough, little Jim McDonough. I think he was second or third in that race. And yeah, I think he ran like a 2:28, which was fantastic. So Norm Higgins won the race by quite a bit. Um, it was all in Central Park. The whole race was in Central Park. I think it was five loops. Five loops? Yeah, about five loops. So yeah, and I always enjoy trying different distances. Um, a 12 miler. My father would always want to drive up to either Massachusetts. We had relatives in Worcester, Mass. If there was a road race there, I might run in it if our family wanted to go up there. um, and then Connecticut, Paul Fetcher ran all the races in Connecticut. Um, Milford, Westport, um, Greenwich, all these races during like a flower festival or so it was a welcoming feeling to go to a race and act and see all these people. It was like welcome home. Uh, and then there were also athletes you never saw before from Connecticut or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
So anyway, so I love running. I really love running. Too bad my screen froze, but at least you can see me. Uh, yeah, I'm 77 now, and I'll tell you one thing if I can slip in a side comment about my health. I think I told you I was diagnosed in 2013 with chronic leukemia, and I took a number of pills for leukemia over the years that affected my heart, the circuitry of my heart. But from running, my heart muscle, because of the echocardiograms I've taken, I take like 3 or 4 a year. The last tech, who was a triathlete, who gave me an echocardiogram, said your heart muscle, the morphology, the heart muscle itself is so strong from all those years of running that you pump out a lot more blood than the average person, which makes up for my slow heartbeat. So little by little, I'm starting to see that my running really shaped my health in my older years. I'm just saying. Um, my oncologist told me, my leukemia doctor, he said, you'll beat this thing because your overall health is excellent. Your overall health is excellent. And every time I see him, I wear a running shirt. And he's a biker. He's an older guy like myself, but he likes to bike with his family and his two older sons. So, here I am, 77, and I'm interested in. I'm gonna go out hiking, Sarah, today for about 2 hours,
Yeah. Like you do
and
every day, right? Most every day?
go out almost every day.
Yeah.
And then actually, I still think I can go out and run. I look up. This is like a dream. I don't know if this. I don't think this will ever happen, but I look up the Boston Marathon results, or I'll look up the New York City Marathon results for my age group. And there are guys who are unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Um, anyone my age who can run a 4 hour marathon. Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. But my health is pretty good. My health is very good. Uh, I weigh 160. I'm 5'9", 5'8". And my girlfriend's 83, and I can't keep up with her. She's from Germany. In Germany, they walk all over. So I knew I had leukemia. I won't go off on a tangent on this, but I was walking up a hill toward a castle in Germany, and she's walking up the hill, and she said, "Yeah, why don't you keep up quicker?" You know, I said, "I can't. I'm tired." She said, "That's not like you." And then we stopped in the castle, and I sat down. And then as we walked down the hill, I sat on a bench, and she said, "You need to get checked up. You know, you might have something. I don't know." And then I went back to San Diego, and I had leukemia. I
Wow.
found out I had leukemia.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, running, helped you realize that something, or not running necessarily, but, like a strenuous walk like that helped you realize that something was off with your body when you might not have noticed otherwise.
Yeah, and another thing too, we were walking. We went to a canal where they had a. They have beautiful places over there. We stopped and she knows Europe, so we stopped on a canal in a restaurant, and we bought duck. Okay, I never had duck before. And then we had to walk about a mile and a half back to the pension. And some of these pensions are 400 years old. So we were walking back, and I remember my left ankle was swollen, and I didn't know why. And I said to my girlfriend, Brigitte, her name is Brigitte, I said, my ankle's killing me. And I got ice in the main lobby, and it still didn't help that much. And I was taking ibuprofen. And then I knew when I went back, I had leukemia. So,
Oh.
but I'm in good hands. I have good doctors. I don't think of leukemia that much. Um, I never, with the Diamond League track meets, that drives me nuts. Those guys are so good. If it's a Sunday morning and all of a sudden I see Diamond League, I'm in for the day. I'm watching. I'm watching everything. I just love it. So
Do you still follow the sport, like other than Diamond League? You said you're looking at the World Marathon major results to some extent, but are you like a track nerd, or are you just, following running in any way you
I
can?
follow everything.
Yeah.
I follow the marathons. I think the marathon times are unbelievable. I'm just shocked. Used to be if you ran a 3 hour marathon, like Nina Cusick, she first broke 3 hours as a lady, and she was a super nice person. Nina Cusick. She lived in Huntington, Long Island, so she was at all the races. Nina Cusick. Uh, yeah, it was good. Gary Murphy was at the He lived in Huntington, right? Um, there were a couple other people out there. So we had our little enclaves. We had our Long Island runners, then we had our Central Park runners, then you had the Van Cortlandt Park people, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was pretty interesting. But I'll tell you one thing: no matter where you went, like for example, when I was in Europe, uh, running in Germany, the soccer players are always running pretty long distance. So when I stopped, oh, this is like 10 years ago. I stopped by a water fountain. A bunch of German guys came up, young guys, and they saw one of my running shirts from San Diego. Yeah, well, are you from San Diego? And I said, yeah, you want to run with us? So I tried to run with them for a while. I said, you guys have to slow up. But we were running around this big reservoir in Hamburg, and I knew I was never going to make it. But I said, are you guys going to be at that big coffee shop, that lagoon at the end of the loop? Yeah, well, we see you. And I went back, and they all spoke English fairly well. Um, but I made friends. I mean, that it's magic. I just maybe it's because of my personality. I'm friendly. Um,
And related
uh,
to that, we haven't touched on this yet. Your friendship with Steve Prefontaine, once you went back out, when you moved out to San Diego in '72, you encountered a handful of runners, just, accidentally, kind of. And one of those was Steve Prefontaine. Can you talk about that and just your relationship with him?
oh yeah. Okay, I went to UCLA Meet of Champions. I almost remember the exact day. It was in February, I think 1973. He broke the American 6 mile record the night before in Bakersfield. And so I went to the UCLA Meet of Champions to watch the meet. And at that point, I was training with Joe Douglas, Santa Monica Track Club. So lo and behold, I got there way before it started. And I walked up, if you know Drake Stadium, UCLA, you've got these big cement steps. And at the very top, this cavernous bathroom. And it's like a bowling alley. So the I walked in the east side of the bathroom, and Steve was at the sink combing his hair all the way at the other end, and I saw the duck jacket, the lime jacket, lime and yellow, and I knew Oregon was there, and I didn't expect to see him. So I'm walking out, I'm walking toward him, but I'm walking out. I'm not walking toward him. I'm not. I don't want to bother the guy. That's the respect I have. Like Eamon Coughlin, Peter Snell, I met them all. Jim Ryan, great guy. They had a Jim Ryan day here. That was unbelievable. But anyway, getting back to Steve Prefontaine, he's combing his hair. It's all wet, pulling his hair to the side. And then I looked at him as he followed me out, and I said, "Oh, are you running today?" He goes, "No, I'm a little tired." And he followed me out. And then lo and behold, there were bleachers right there. Nobody was around. And I started talking with him. And I called his sister, Linda, by the way. She's up in Coos Bay still. She gave me her phone number. So I'm standing there with my arm up on the bleacher, and Prefontaine standing right there, like a foot away. And we started talking. He started talking about New York. How do you like San Diego? I mean, how do you like LA? It was LA at the time. How do you like LA? He wanted to know a little bit about Joe Douglas. How do you like the training? And he was very relaxed. I didn't feel intimidated at all. I'm starting to feel like I'm going to cry. So he's standing there. And then I said to him, "Well, Steve, how come you're so tired today?" And he said, "Well, I ran a race last night." And this is how he described it. He just broke the American record, and he didn't really want to talk about it. He said, "Well, I ran a race last night, and it was boring." I said, "Really?" He said, 24 laps. I said, "Oh, that's a 6-miler." He said, "Yeah, I don't think I'll do that again." And he looked down at the ground, and I said, "Well, how'd you do?" And he said, "Well, I won the race." "Oh, that's good. What was your time?" Now, this got me. 27:09. And I said to him, "Oh, I knew that was an American record because Billy Mills and Jerry Lindgren had the record 27:11. I knew that. So I knew he set the record. So I looked down at the ground. I took a deep breath, actually, and I said, "Oh, so is that a record?" And he looked away and he went, "Yeah, it's an American record." And he looked down on the ground, at the ground, like he was embarrassed or something. He looked like, whoa, holy cow. So then we started talking about social life in LA and dating and, stuff like that, to be honest with you, guy stuff. So then he said to me, "Well, I'm going to take a run later, but I think I can go not a slow 10. And he's kind of looking at me and I'm thinking, no way. I don't want too intimidated. Then he said, "Well, where do you sit?" I said, came here by myself. "You want to sit with us down? Want to see Mac Wilkins, his best friend, shot putter, a discus throw, I think. Yeah, he won the Olympics, Mac Wilkins, later on." I said, "Oh, really?" "Yeah." He said, "Why don't you come on and meet the boys?" And I said, "Well, Steve, why don't I just hang out?" I was really intimidated. I said, "You know what? I'll come down later." And he said, "We've got coolers and everything. We have some refreshments." And he smiled. I said, "Well, I'll be coming down later." And he said, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It was great talking with you." And I slapped him on the back and I walked away. That was it. I felt it was like guy to guy. If you would have seen the two of us talking, except for that record, you would say these are two guys who compete against each other. And, it was just like a social thing. I think he liked the fact that it didn't bother him when I was walking out. He saw I was walking away from him. And when he died, I was just like, whoa.
Because you ended up developing a pretty good relationship with him after that, right?
No, I never talked to him again.
Oh, okay. Oh, but you had it's like you were in contact with his sister though.
Yeah, I called when he had the accident.
Okay.
Yeah, I called the house. I looked up Prefontaine in the telephone book. Believe that back then, Coos Bay Roland Prefontaine was his father,
Hmm.
and I called them, and they just came back from the cemetery. And I talked to the mother briefly, um, who was German, um, Elrita, I think her name was. And then Linda came on. Obviously, I didn't want to talk too much.
Yeah.
But
Well, just I
if
mean, you had
he,
that one interaction with him, and that was enough for you to contact them after his death. I mean, he just had that much of an impact on you.
he had a lot of impact on me. The humility, um, and you know what? That really solved the personality issue for me regarding Prefontaine, because you see him on TV. Well, you're going to have to really work to stay up with me. You know, a lot of this so-called bragging, so-called. And then when I met him, I said, I think that's just an act to intimidate, because he's nothing like that. And to invite me down to sit with the guys was nice. I'm almost sure I could have run with him later. Um, that would have been nice. And he said he was going to go really easy because his legs were hammered.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for a guy like that. Um,
And then
and then
you'd also encountered and run with some women in California in the early 70s, like Julie Brown in particular, and also like Mickey Gorman and Jackie Hansen. Can you talk a bit about that as women's running was kind of coming to the fore at that time?
Julie Brown and I became good friends. I ran with Julie Brown for over a year. Um, Julie Brown was very shy, very, very shy. I was up at her house. Nike sponsored her house up in Scripps Ranch, and she lived with another athlete in the house. Um, yeah, Julie Brown was a very introverted, nice person. Um, I met her in a coffee shop here in San Diego. I was working in the law office. I graduated law school, and I was working in the law office, and I'm in a donut shop taking a break, and who walks in? Julie Brown with a blue Nike warm-up jacket and jeans. And as she walked in, she walked out with a bag of donuts, and I knew it was Julie Brown. She was in for a race. She was in San Diego for a 10K, and of course I didn't know that. So I'm sitting there, and I yelled over to her in a funny way, "Hey, Julie, you're going to gain weight with all those donuts." And she said, "Do you know me?" I went, "I think I do." And we struck up a nice conversation. And she said, "Oh, you work nearby?" I said, "In a law office down the street." And then we talked for like maybe 20 minutes about training. And then she said, "Well, what's your phone number at the office? I'll call you tomorrow. Maybe we'll work out if you want." And okay, so I gave her my phone number. And the head of the office, all the guys in the office were triathletes or marathon runners. And it was a pretty big law office. The head of the law office was a diehard triathlete, and his name is Murphy Reinschreiber, also German. So I said, "Hey, I met Julie Brown of all people in the coffee shop down the street." He went, "Yeah, and I met Santa Claus." I said, "No, no, no." Julie Brown walked in and bought a bag of donuts. So he said, "Really?" "Yeah, and get this, she might call me tomorrow." And he said, "Oh, forget it." The next day, in her little sheepish voice, she said, "Is Jim there?" And Murphy said, "Who's this?" She said, "Julie." And he went, "Oh, okay, hold on a sec." Walks in the room. I don't want to tell you what he said to me,
I can
but
only imagine. Yeah.
it wasn't very nice. He said, "This girl on the phone, Julie, wants to talk to you." And he gave me a dirty look. He knew who it was. And I said, "I'll meet you at Mission Bay." We met at Mission Bay for a long time, on and off. Whenever she was in town or whenever she was here for a while, we ran up to UCSD, 22-mile run. And what was great about it is no pressure. We just ran along, socialized. Um, we became pretty good friends. We became pretty good friends. Um, yeah, I thought she was pretty shy, though. She was shy. After a while around me, after a couple jokes, she loosened up. They
What
weren't.
year would that have been, ish?
That would have been oh geez, before the '84 Olympics. As she moved up to Oregon before the Olympics to train, I'm trying to think. It's about '82.
Okay. So
Yeah,
she had
she
already
was.
set, like she had set the American women's marathon record before that. Like she had already
Oh
proven
yeah,
herself.
Avon,
Yeah.
226. Right. I
Yeah.
watched the. Yeah. Um, she had a lot of photographs. I'm not going to get into anything private, but she had a lot of track photographs of famous women athletes in her house, and she said, "And I'm the best one," and she left. And I said, "That's great. That's fantastic," you know. Um, and she always watched her weight, and I didn't quite agree with that. We did go out. She spoke some Chinese. We went to a Chinese buffet, and she ordered in Chinese, and because she had raced in China a number of times, and they were shocked. She started speaking Chinese. And she always watched her weight. She could not just let it go. Um, but I enjoyed the company a lot. Um, yeah, sometimes she came over. She won a BMW in one of the races, and she came over to my apartment and she threw the keys to me. She said, "Why don't you drive it?" I said, "I knew you won the race." Um, I think she won. I think she won New York City Marathon. I think she won the New York City Marathon. I'm pretty sure. Um, anyway, that's about it. I developed a nice friendship with her, and um, yeah, she gave me a lot of tips on stretching, and she stretched every morning. She did a lot of stretching and some swimming, and then she always contacted either meet directors in the morning or a coach. And a little beyond me, but that's great. I mean, she's on that level. I thought she was going to win LA. Uh, Joan Benoit was fantastic. Um, I don't know. I Julie didn't have a very good day, but it happens, especially in the
Mhm.
marathon.
Yeah, especially
You know,
LA in the summer, it's hot and you just sometimes the weather just doesn't work in your favor.
right, right. And she had that little when she was running. She was like a little pigeon toed because if you ran behind her, you could see her feet were kind of out like this. And I'm not judging her, but I'm just saying idiosyncratic style.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think she was going to win, but that's about it. Um,
And were you like aware of other women who were running at that time, like Mickey Gorman, Jackie Hansen? I know they were in the LA area. Were you acquainted
yeah,
with
there was,
their accomplishments or what they were doing for women's running in the early 70s?
was budding. I would say there was a woman from New Zealand, Liz Muller. I don't know if you remember her. Mickey Gorman. She trained under Laszlo, by the way. Um, yeah, I'm just saying, not as in the forefront as today. But there were quite a few women, like what's her name, Onina Cusick. People like that would show up at Central Park road races, and but I would say the ratio of women to men back then was substantially larger. Uh, but women. I'll tell you right now. I know that Jock Semple pulled what's her name, Catherine Schweitzer off the course, the Boston course. When was that? Oh, I don't remember. 1967, maybe.
Yeah, 67, I think.
Yeah. Um, I didn't think that was right, but it goes
Yeah,
to
and,
show
and
you.
Bobby Gibb had run it the year before, but he didn't see her.
Yeah, he didn't see her. Right, she had a hood up, I think.
Yeah, or she had yeah, she was not, um, I don't know how she actually didn't get spotted, at least by, where word of mouth got to him. But yeah, it was Switzer that he pulled off the course. That was 67.
And she had a couple guys running side by side,
Hmm.
protecting her. Um, I don't know. I don't think that taking somebody off the course is to get it.
Yeah, I mean, women's running has come certainly a long way. I mean, that was only what, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that women's running has
Exactly.
just come such a long way since then. It was hardly even, doctors would recommend that women not run at all. And
We'll
then,
give you an idea about women's running. In 1965, when I was actually 1966, I was a senior at Syosset High School on Long Island. And believe it or not, my first girlfriend was a Swedish girl, really good looking girl. She was in 11th grade and she was running. She would go out. She was the only girl in the school. And I'm saying the word girl. She's a young girl, 16. She went out and ran loops with the team. And my coach even laughed. He said, "How about that? You got a girl running. That's great." And eventually, and then this is kind of funny, in the cafeteria, I was really into my running. I wasn't into dating. so, so she's sitting on one side of the cafeteria and she was strikingly good looking. Her parents were from Sweden. So she's sitting down, very modest. And I walked by the table and she just smiled, our table. I walked by leaving the cafeteria. And and then little by little, she started moving toward my table. And, and then she sat down right across from me and said, "Can I join you?" And I said, "Yeah." And I was looking at her like, whoa. I hope I'm not sounding sexist when I say this, but I really didn't plan on having a girlfriend. But little by little, she said, "Oh, you know what? My classroom is right by yours. So why don't we just walk over to class together?" So little by little, it was all day, walking in the halls together to class, eating lunch together. Then after school, she would go in the locker room, change, come out running. She would run 2.5, 3 miles. And she came on the school bus. She didn't compete. She got on the school bus to track meets, and I went to the prom with her. Um, I have photographs. It was unbelievable. And then eventually I went to St. John's and we drifted apart.
mm,
But I did visit her a couple of times in my first year at St. John's because she doesn't live too far away from me. So I visited, the parents welcomed me, and I could see it was tough to maintain a relationship because I had school all day, then I had track, then at night I had to study.
mhm.
So there were no hard feelings. It was just kind of drifting apart. And when I was a freshman at St. John's, April was her name. April would be, um, she was a senior actually. And then she was thinking about going to college. So we drifted apart. But yeah,
And
she was a runner.
running in the, like, Title IX wasn't even enacted until 72, and then it really didn't come into effect until the mid to late 70s. So she was much way ahead of her time in that regard, especially traveling to meets and stuff.
Right, right. She was interested in the meets, and she was really super. My parents met her, and I said it was nice. I had a girlfriend. I mean, believe me, all the years when I was running and playing baseball, I was like Tom Fleming, always on the move. But when I played baseball, I played till it got dark. And then when I wrestled, I was on the wrestling team. And that helped my running, I think, quite a bit because we used to do jumping jacks, spinning drills, switching drills, takedowns. And I loved wrestling. I loved wrestling. I would say I was a B wrestler. Okay. We had some pretty good guys on the team. But yeah, then when I got involved with running, my coach in high school was a great guy. He encouraged you all the time. And if you didn't show up at practice in those days, he would call your house and he would yell at my mother, "Where's your son? How come he didn't work out today?" That was rare. Uh, yeah, I would say Julie Brown was I would say she was a gift in my life, to be honest with you. She was an inspirational, she was a great runner, absolute great runner. Um, and, I couldn't get over how modest she was. I
It
even
sounds like
told her,
you had the same, with Steve Prefontaine, it was the same. You just, like you said, had a guy to guy talk with him, and you wouldn't have known that he was American record holder and, such a brash outward personality by the media, but, seemingly a really nice guy, just one on one.
very, very easy, very sociable,
Mm.
very sociable. Um, he liked New York. He ran a couple indoor track meets there. But another class act, I met Jim Ryan here. They had Jim Ryan Day. They had all of San Diego, all the track athletes went to Balboa Stadium, where Jim Ryan beat Peter Snell in that 355 mile in high school. And it was a very, very touching experience because Jim Ryan didn't come out. He would hold up the tape. They had age group mile races for quite a while, and at the end he would hold up the tape, and then they had a box, where they had the first, second, and third place finishes for each age group, like 8-year-old boys, 8-year-old girls, and Jim Ryan would stand behind and take a photograph with them. So when I walked into Balboa Stadium, I recognized a lot of the runners. The whole running community was there. And then as I walked in, I took a program, and who bounds up the steps, because the bathroom's right up at the top of the staircase, at the top of the bleachers? Jim Ryan. So Jim Ryan comes
Another
by.
bathroom encounter.
Yeah, yeah. So Jim Ryan's running toward the bathroom, and I'm walking toward the stairs to go down on the bleachers, and here's Jim Ryan running up, and barely, because he has a hip problem. So he's coming up, and I said, "Hey, Jim, you want to sign my booklet?" He went, "Will do," and then he ran in the bathroom. And then I said to the group all around looking at him, "You know how long he's going to be in the bathroom?" And they said, "How long?" 3 minutes and 51.1 seconds. And then he came out and he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Jim." "Good name." He said, "Why don't you meet me down on the infield later after we get the races started?" And I thought, he's just saying that. And I walked down. I walked on the infield, and there was Jim Ryan, of course. And I said, "Hey, Jim, want to sign my program?" He went, "Yeah." I didn't have one of those felt pens. I didn't have a felt pen. So he said, "Oh, let me get a pen." He runs in a tent, one of those little tents, and comes out a couple minutes later with a felt pen. And he signs, he had some kind of biblical line. He's a born again Christian. He had a biblical line. He wrote his name, best regards, and a biblical line that I remember. And I was shocked. He took so much time out for me. And then after the races were over, one kid in the area whose best time was a 4:02 ran 3:56 that night because Jim Ryan was there.
Wow, yeah, that's motivation right there.
Eric Avila.
Hmm.
They had T-shirts, break 4, Eric. Okay. And he ran 3:56. And AJ Acosta was second, 3:57. But, so then as Jim Ryan, when the races were over, Jim Ryan stood on the infield and they had a jumbotron, gigantic screen. Now they were going to show his races, 67, 66 on his jumbo screen. So he comes out and people are buzzing and talking in the stands. And he's out there for like 30 seconds. And I had a little spotlight on him. And then he said, "Hi." He waved. "Guess what? I'm Jim Ryan." And everybody's quieted down. And again, he looked shy. He was shy. He looked shy. And he said, "Well, they're going to show you a couple excerpts from some of my races from way back. Why don't we start?" And then they just showed the races. And it was touching. It was touching. And then Eamon Coughlin, another superstar, his buddy lives about 2 or 3 miles from here in Mission Beach. He's from Ireland too. And whenever Eamon's in town or he was injured, he had shin splints for a while, he stayed at Neil's house and we got to know Eamon pretty well. We had a couple parties. He didn't drink a lot of beer, but we had some beer. And Eamon used to run with us when he was in top shape. In fact, just before he broke that 3:49 indoors, he ran a workout in Balboa Park up an incline, a 400-yard incline, like 10 degrees up the sidewalk with a lot of top runners in San Diego. Nobody could even stay up with him halfway through the workout. And we had like Tom Hunt, sub 4-minute miler, Dale Fleet. We had a lot of good guys. I wasn't there. I thank God.
Yeah.
That run.
That would have been tough to keep up with that crowd.
Oh yeah, that would have been a tough one. Yeah, and plus I was gee, I might have been in my 40s at the time, so I wasn't anywhere near that shape. But I heard about the workout. So yeah,
If
having
you had to choose like the New York running scene in the mid 60s, early 70s versus what you experienced out in the LA, San Diego running scene, how would you compare those? Were they, I realize they were different eras kind of, and obviously different everything, geography, weather, everything else, but did you prefer one over the other, whether it was based on camaraderie or running routes or anything like that, or did you just have a soft spot for each, just given their
yeah,
various,
different kind of soft spot for each one.
yeah.
Um, I noticed after a period in the 60s, people didn't care about what they looked like as far as running. Because if you looked at photographs, Gary Corbett had photographs of me in an 8 miler in Central Park when I was like 16 or 17. And I'm wearing baggy pants, a dumpy t shirt with my number pinned on, and black magic marker. I would, runners used to write their numbers on the oak tag, magic, with a magic marker. Um, yeah, yeah, people really didn't care about so much what they looked like. I was wearing socks for gloves, a knit cap. Put it this way, nobody was color coordinated in the 60s.
Yeah. Not on purpose anyway.
Yeah, and then also I'm amazed that our feet held up in the 60s because they had these waffle shoes that had wedges at the bottom on the bottom, but they used to pick up stones. So especially when I ran down through Alley Pond Park, they had these old roads in there with rocks, and you could pick up all these rocks and get bone bruises. Um, I remember there were a lot of the first Nike shoes were not very thin on the bottom, very thin, uh, and they had a couple Japanese shoes that were, I don't know, like first timers, um, not exactly impressive. But I'm talking 60s, early 70s. But today, you've got all these designer clothes. And I have Hoka. Um, I wear Hoka. I love them. It's like my 10th pair. And running shoes are expensive, $150, $140. Um, I don't know. It's the same old community, though. That's for sure. Um, Runners are runners. And, I go to a running store up in San Diego. It's a big running store, and no matter when I go there, most of the most of the salesmen are runners. Most of the ladies are runners, and they want to know about your running. Even though you're an older guy now, are you running at all? I'm trying. Um, and then you have a number of track athletes at that store, 440 hurdles. Um, so it's basically like a whole subculture. It's basically like a subculture. Um, So that's about it. And, in Europe, when I traveled around Europe with my girlfriend Brigitte, the best way I think to see a city is to jog through it because you feel the city. I remember running through Prague, every city. I ran in Karlovy, Czech Republic. There was a forest near our pension. I would run out into the forest, and there were hiking trails in there. It was like an A plus. I would say I was there 15 years ago. I could run a good workout. Um, yeah. The only scary thing, if I could tell you, when I came out of the forest one day, I was about 5 miles from the pension on this lonely road, and there were these militant people with guns. I mean, automatic weapons. They were dressed in military garb, and they're walking down the street. They were in their 20s, and here I am jogging down there with a San Diego Marathon shirt. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh no, I mean, is this the way I'm going out? I was alone with these people and they just, I just ran by and that was it. And it was scary to be in a place like that with a whole group, must have been about 8 or 9 militant people. And that was scary. Sometimes even dogs, that's another big thing too. I had a couple incidents with dogs. Luckily, I didn't get attacked. It was scary though. I think runners all have their stories. Um, so I don't know. Did you want to know anything else?
I was just wondering what at this, you're 77 and you're still getting out, you're motivated to get out and do some sort of activity every day. Can you pinpoint where that motivation comes from? Is it just a lifetime of running, racing, movement, sports, or is there something else, that keeps you going?
Well, I think that's a question that's part of me. I mean, I've always been active, physically active. Um, I feel that by running and now hiking a lot, sometimes I hike for 2 hours. Um, uh, it's the movement. I like to go. It's the movement. It's being outside, outdoors, not wondering about competition. Just being outdoors, feeling good. Um, I see I go to the YMCA a lot. I lift light weights. I do quite a bit of swimming, and I notice guys my age, a lot of them have, and I'm not judging them, but I am saying a lot of them for the age of say 75, they are really in bad shape, and I don't want to be like that. I'm not saying I'm in the greatest shape, but I would say the one word movement. I like to get out. Like, for example, yesterday it was really hot, 5 o'clock. I drove out to the trails and I wasn't with my girlfriend yesterday, but I walked out onto the trails and I felt a whole different mindset. I just felt, and I see a lot of the people out there, just like with the runners, I see a lot of the same people. Um, I see a couple people who are there with their dogs all the time, and everybody seems pretty happy. It's a lot different than, say, for example, the mindset when you go to a shopping mall. There are a lot of people there too, but I don't see the happy faces as much. But when I go hiking, a lot of the people are just really, really happy to be there, and that's where I'm at. Um, and in the back of my mind, in complete answer to your question, I'm really thinking of someday, believe it or not, finishing the Boston Marathon. I'm not lying about it.
That's
If I
great.
could, huh?
That's great.
There was a 92-year-old lady here in San Diego who finished the San Diego Marathon, and they showed her the last 200 yards finishing. And I was thinking, maybe I can do that.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't called it quits. I mean, I enjoy running. I enjoy the physicality of it. Um, I see a lot of young kids today are in bad shape, a lot of obesity. Um, I'm not saying I'm Mr. Great at all, but I do like to work out. And when I lift weights, I'm no longer intimidated by these young muscle guys. I mean, lift, I'll do light curls, military press, dumbbells, lateral raise, whatever. Um, I do my 25 to 30 sit-ups almost every day. Uh, yeah, I just enjoy the workouts. I enjoy the workouts. Uh, and I think it's also a question of training because my dad was really into baseball for years when he was young. And he was a good athlete. He was a good basketball player, pretty fast runner, sprinter. And he always encouraged me, what'd you do for a workout today? Or it's raining. Are you going to wait till it stops? Or, put your rain jacket on and do a short one.
Hmm.
It was always do something. And my dad, like I said, used to go to Van Cortlandt Park all the time. Um, and he liked to inquire, especially someone like Byron Dice, who's a very friendly guy. Um, my dad would walk over to him. He would walk over to different runners, just start talking with them. And he said, "I'm Jim's father." Um, yeah, yeah, it's just a wonderful climate to be involved with something like that.
Yeah, it seems like it's deeply ingrained just from, like you said, your growing up experience growing up and also just how you've kept it in your life for 77 years now. It's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and also, and I see my grandfather lived to 98, and he was always on the move. He was always in the old Greek boots.
Hmm.
He had dumpy looking baggy pants, but he was able to. He had that farm. He was able to get up in the morning, eat a very light breakfast, and then walk with me or someone else around the farm in the solitude of the woods, no phones or anything, and and he lived to 98. And I have to admit this, he smoked. Believe it or not, he smoked.
Mm.
He
Yeah, I
smoked
guess it wasn't unusual in those times.
yeah, he smoked Camel non-filter cigarettes.
Oh man, yeah.
So he died at 98 from a blood clot in his lung, and the doctor said he would have easily made it to over 100 had
Mm.
he, you know. Um, I have longevity in my family. My mother was 86. She died from leukemia suddenly. It was a different kind of leukemia than I have, but she was in good shape. When she was in the hospital, her EKG was perfect because the nurses would say, as she was lying there, I wish I had a heart as good as that. And my mother always approved of working out. Do something today. Um, take your cousin out for a walk. I was always ingrained with that physical aspect of life. We didn't have a family that just sat down and ate and then watched TV all night. We usually did something. Um, so that's where I'm at, Sarah. I have no regrets about my running. Uh, like I said, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking maybe if my knees are together sometime, maybe I'll try to run a marathon.
Yeah, keep
Um,
me posted. I would love to hear how that goes. Just not even, running a marathon, but just getting yourself back up into marathon level fitness. I mean, it sounds like you keep saying, you're not in that great of shape, but you're doing things every day to get yourself closer and closer to that goal already. So
right.
I think it's in the cards for you.
All right. So anyway, did you want to ask me anything else?
No, I think we've covered pretty much um again most of your running story and just some of the great runners, either renowned or, not so renowned people that you've come across in your running and just how it's impacted your life. So this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, and meeting people like Laszlo, uh, he was a wonderful person. I have regrets that I didn't stay with him, but I was I was having problems, injuries. Um, I even told Laszlo maybe you could ease up a little bit, and he said, "Well, yeah, I'll work out." Um, yeah, then the runners liked him. The runners when they gathered around him for their workout, you could feel there was such a positive attitude. Um, San Fernando Valley track out in the valley. So Dave Babaraki, yeah, he was his top runner. Dave Babaraki. Um, yeah, he won a couple top races. So, but Laszlo encouraged you. Um, yeah, that's about it. And you know what? There are a lot of athletes who don't click with their coaches. I mean, I think that is very common. So I just accept things the way they are. I'm happy to be 77 and thinking about hiking later. Um, and it's interesting. I met my girlfriend Brigitte 22 years ago, and she's pretty physically fit. 83. You should see her walk. Um, why don't you keep up now?
Yeah, that's your inspiration right there is to keep up with Brigitte.
Yeah, keep up with her. She doesn't think I'll be able to run a marathon. She thinks I'm a little crazy if I'm thinking that way. I said, well, look at you. When you shop in Germany, all you do is walk all day.
Yeah, maybe she's just trying to challenge you, but do it kind of in a backhanded way.
The Germans in her apartment building in Hamburg, about a mile and a half are all the clustered stores: fish market, meat market, grocery store. Um, she's got a like a delicatessen, a bratwurst place, and but you really have to walk. You really have to walk. So, but anyway, that I think that covers a lot. I think you get the feeling I have toward running.
Yeah, I know sometimes it's hard to put into words, but definitely the emotion comes through and just how you talk about it and all the relationships you made and how it's impacted your life.
Do you think my photograph is okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the video didn't work, but we'll make do.
Uh, yeah, I don't know, but you could tell I love running. I love talking about running. Uh, yeah, it's interesting. I bet there are a lot of runners who met famous runners. I'm just saying Peter Snell, L.B. Thomas. I met Bill Rogers. Wow, he's an interesting guy. I met him at his peak. My brother went to Stony Brook University, and across the street was the Stony Brook private school, high school, and their coach knew Bill Rogers' coach, Bill Squires from Boston, Greater Boston Track Club.
Hmm.
So Bill Rogers was going to be in the area, and he asked, I don't know, as the story goes, he asked Bill Rogers to show up at one of his gyms at that private school. And my brother said, hey, why don't you come out? Bill Rogers is going to put on a little workshop at the private school across the street. And so we went over there. There were like 40, 50 athletes. And we sat on the floor. And Bill Rogers sat on the floor, wore jeans, t shirt. Easiest guy, just laid back. I mean, very interesting guy. Had some theories about training, but very easy guy. You wouldn't even know he's an athlete. He's just sitting there talking to you. And this is when he's winning the Boston Marathon every year. So, but you never know. You just bump into these people, like Julie Brown in a donut shop, of all places. Walks into a donut shop. Um, oh, we had some lady runners in San Diego. What's her name? Oh, we had three or four lady runners in the 80s when I was running here in San Diego competitively. Oh, I forget her name. They all ran around 240, 245. Had about four or five women. And there was one runner. I forget her name. I bought a car from her. I needed a car. Here's another example. My car was dying out. And she said, let me drive my car here tomorrow to Mission Bay. My dad's done repairs on it for years. It was an old Oldsmobile. And I bought the car, never had a problem with it. That just shows, I don't know if that relates to running, but it shows loyalty.
Another running connection that paid off in some way.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. After we had these little fun runs, like a 3 mile fun run, we had hamburgers and hot dogs on the grass at Mission Bay. And Mission Bay still is the hub for a lot of runners. If you go to Mission Bay at 5 o'clock any evening, you'll see a lot of runners out there, not necessarily competitive, just running, out there running. So, but I hope this interview is okay.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate your time and just how generous you've been with your memories and all your emotions around running. It's been really nice to capture this, and hopefully it'll inspire others to get out and follow in your footsteps until they're 77 or older, just staying out there, being active. Like you said, a lifetime of movement will take you a long way.
Right, right, okay. Something I don't know if you have the time for this, if you feel like it. You know that Bristol, Connecticut 8 miler took place in October 1972. It was the first week of October. And Gary Corbett said that race I ran was really good. And so I'm looking for the race results. I never could find them.
You'll have to look into that. I'm not sure if Gary's looked into that further, but I can
Yeah,
definitely check with
Bristol,
him.
Connecticut, October 5th, 1972. And I came in eighth in the race. And I think John Vitale won it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the results from that just for posterity and just to know, know who was in the race and who you beat. It sounds like it was pretty competitive.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You could ask Gary about it. I don't know if Gary even has results. I don't know. I don't know. But it was a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Jim.
All right. So
We'll be in touch.
I hope the old mug works out.
I hope so too.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Have a good one. Yeah.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.